the United Nations has expressed deep concern about the humanitarian crisis that Nigeria is currently facing. The United Nations Refugee Agency says the country's economic slowdown, compounded by Boko Haram attacks, could mean that 5.5 million people will need food aid in the northeast region by September. Susan Wangeli reports.
The Nigerian military has made significant gains against Boko Haram in recent months. Despite the gains, though, the United Nations warns that the military campaign has exposed catastrophic levels of suffering and a vast regional crisis.
There are numerous reports of human rights violations, including deaths, sexual violence, disappearances, forced recruitment, forced religious conversions, attacks on civilian sites. Some 800,000 additional internally displaced people have been identified as needing help.
According to the UNHCR, there have been frequent hit-and-run incidents by militants, including suicide bombings, attacks on civilians, torching of homes, and theft of livestock.
Many of the displaced are women, children, the elderly. There are urgent needs pretty much wherever we're looking. We've seen adults so exhausted they're unable to move, children with swollen faces, hollow eyes, other clear indications of acute malnutrition. Many also show signs of severe trauma. We have people screaming at night. We have aggression among children. People complain about a lack of food and water.
Many of those in need of urgent help are still beyond reach. The situation is compounded further by Nigeria's economic slowdown.
Because of Nigeria's economic downturn, the number of hungry people could double in the northeastern states that are already so heavily afflicted by the conflict. The drop in oil prices and the sharp rise in the cost of imported staples has compounded the years of violence that these poor people had to suffer. So we are concerned, our experts are warning, that it could go as high as 5.5 million people by next month.
The UN World Food Programme says more than 3 million people are in a state of moderate or severe food insecurity. It warns that unless life-saving assistance is provided fast, hunger will only deepen during the current lean and rainy season. Susan Mongeli, CCTV.
A worrying situation indeed. Let's get to the very latest now on this. We're joined from Lagos by CCTV's Deji Badmus. Deji, we just heard the UN agencies saying that this is an escalating humanitarian crisis. Just how bad is the situation?
Well, Lindy, I must say it's really bad, and as people are able to gain access to that region, especially the international aid agencies now, as they're able to gain more access into that region, they're beginning to find out how bad and terrible the situation is. To put things in perspective, Yobe and Borno State, which are the two states affected, used to be the food basket of this country. I mean, the bulk of the people, the majority of the population, they're farmers. But, for the past 2-3 years now, they've not been able to farm. Millions of farmers have been displaced. For several years, they've not been able to farm. Most of them scattered in IDP camps. And it's now beginning to tell, not just the people of the south, the northeast now, even the country as a whole. As we've been reporting there, of course, has been reported, the price of staple food has actually gone up, and one of the reasons is just because the farmers in the northeast have not been farming. So it's really a terrible situation. And what even makes it worse is that some of these communities in the northeast are so far apart, so it's very difficult to gain access to them. And I think all of this is now coming to light because the military has succeeded in pushing back Boko Haram, and some of the communities that, people found difficult to reach before are now accessible, and we're beginning to see how bad and terrible the situation is.
Well, as you point out, Deji, this is a crisis that's been several years in the making, and this is not the first time we've heard warnings from the likes of the UN agencies. Has the government of Nigeria failed to truly acknowledge and to respond to previous warnings?
Well, what I would just say is this. I think the government and some of the international aid agencies now underestimated the scale of this problem. It's not as if the government hasn't done anything. We know the government has sent in food to the northeast of the country. But what the government had done in the past, and even some of the international agencies had done in the past, was to target the IDP camps, of course, which are scattered all over the northeast and some of them in Abuja. But with people now able to gain access to some of these remote communities, it's becoming clear that, you know, quite a number of people are not in these IDP camps. Quite a number of people are in their communities, and there's no question at all that the government definitely underestimated the scale of this crisis, and that what is needed at this moment is a scaling up of aid programs. Now, the government, for instance, would need to send in more foodstuff to that area. The government would need to do more than it is doing now. The international agencies will need to do more than they're doing now. So that's just the only way to deal with this. And you know what? I think it's going to still get worse, because as we've been told, there are still communities that these aid agencies have not been able to reach, that are very difficult, that are, you know, somewhat dangerous. And so when these communities are discovered, we are going to see a more terrible situation, and that more will definitely needs to be done. Unfortunately, of course, it's a terrible time for the economy here in Nigeria. But other than that, I think most importantly is the ability to be able to gain access to some of these areas and then act with speed to get supplies to those areas. And now once that is, once the government can do that and the international agencies can do that, then we'll begin to see the situation probably return to normalcy. But most importantly, these people need to go back to farming. And when the situation in that area is not stable, it's difficult to see that happening. And not until they go back to their normal lifestyle, it will be difficult to deal with this, Lindy.
Certainly a lot of pressure then on those aid agencies as well as the Nigerian government. Thanks very much, Deji Badmus, live for us there in Lagos.